10 rare cars GM built but never released to the public. General Motors once built more than 1,000 electric cars, then hunted down almost every single one and crushed them into scrap. It built a jet-powered car with a 370 horsepower turbine that shot exhaust hot enough to melt the road. It built a Cadillac with 1,000 horsepower and 16 cylinders. And you were never allowed to buy any of them. For decades, the largest car maker on Earth created some of the most incredible machines ever designed, showed them to the world, and then locked them away or destroyed them. These are 10 rare cars GM built but never released to the public. Number 10. The 1938 Buick Y-Job. Start at the very beginning, because this is the car that invented the entire idea of the concept car. Before 1938, car makers simply built cars and sold them. Then GM's legendary design chief, Harley Earl, created something completely new. A vehicle built purely to show off futuristic ideas, with no intention of selling it. He called it the Y-Job, using a letter that went beyond the experimental X designation of the era, as if to say this was even further into the future. And it genuinely was. The Y-Job had power-operated pop-up headlights that hid away when not in use. It had flush door handles you could run your hand across. It had electric power windows and a power convertible top, features that would not become common for decades. It was long, low, and impossibly elegant for its time, built on a Buick chassis with a straight-in engine. But the most remarkable thing is what Harley Earl did with it. He did not lock it in a warehouse. He drove it. For years, the Y-Job was Earl's personal daily car, cruising the streets while the public gawked at something that looked like it had arrived from 20 years in the future. It was never sold, but it created the template every concept car since has followed. I'm going to keep making these, so hit subscribe now so you don't miss what's coming. Number 9. The 1951 Sabre and the dawn of the dream cars. After the war, GM turned the concept car into a spectacle, and the 1951 Sabre was the machine that led the charge. Again, the work of Harley Earl, the Sabre took its inspiration directly from jet aircraft, specifically the F-86 Sabre fighter, right down to the aggressive nose and the sculpted tail. It carried an aluminum supercharged V8 that could run on either gasoline or methanol, and it was packed with genuinely wild gadgets. The car reportedly had a moisture sensor that could detect rain and automatically raise the convertible top on its own, an idea that sounds almost impossible for 1951. Like the Y-Job before it, Harley Earl adopted the Sabre as a personal car and drove it thousands of miles. This was the beginning of GM's Motorama era, a series of dazzling traveling auto shows where the company unveiled a parade of dream cars to enormous crowds. These vehicles were designed to make the public gasp, to sell the idea of the future, and to funnel excitement toward GM showrooms. But the dream cars themselves, the actual machines under the lights, were almost never for sale. Number 8. The 1954 Chevrolet Nomad Motorama concept. Sometimes, GM built a concept so beloved that the public practically demanded it. And the story of the original Nomad shows exactly how the company handled that. At the 1954 Motorama, Chevrolet displayed a Nomad concept, a sleek, sporty station wagon built on the brand-new Corvette styling, blending the sports car's front end with a stylish two-door wagon body. The crowds adored it. Here was something genuinely practical and genuinely beautiful at the same time, a rare combination in a show car. The public response was strong enough that GM actually did something unusual. It brought the Nomad name and many of its design cues to a real production Chevrolet. But here is the catch, and it is an important one. The actual Motorama show car, the true Corvette-based Nomad that people fell in love with, was not what reached showrooms. The production Nomad that followed was a different, more conventional vehicle wearing the name. The original dream car itself, the one that started it all, remained a one-off concept. You could buy a Nomad, but you could never buy that Nomad. Number 7. The GM Firebird Turbine series. Now we reach the wildest machines GM ever built, a trio of cars that were quite literally jet planes for the road. Starting in 1953, GM's designers, once again led by Harley Earl, stopped taking inspiration from aircraft and started building actual turbine-powered vehicles. The Firebird 1 was essentially a fighter jet on wheels, a single-seat machine with a tail fin, a bubble canopy, and a 370 horsepower gas turbine engine that blasted out exhaust at temperatures around 1,250 degrees Fahrenheit, hot enough that it genuinely could not be driven safely near other cars or people. The Firebird 2 that followed was more civilized, a 4-seat family concept with a titanium body, designed to travel a future automated highway. The Firebird 3 went even further, with double bubble canopies, a wild array of fins, and a single control stick that replaced the steering wheel and pedals entirely, letting you drive with one hand. These cars pointed toward a turbine-powered future that never existed. The turbines ran brutally hot, guzzled fuel at low speeds, and required exotic, expensive materials. The dream quietly died. The surviving Firebirds went into GM's private heritage collection, seen by the public, but owned by no one but the company. Number 6. The 1959 Cadillac Cyclone. If any concept car looked like it drove straight out of a science fiction film, it was the Cadillac Cyclone. One of the last designs from Harley Earl before he retired, the 1959 Cyclone was pure space-age fantasy made real. Its most famous features were the 2 sharp nose cones jutting from the front, and those were not just for show. They housed a radar-based collision avoidance system, an idea decades ahead of the automatic emergency braking we have in cars today. The Cyclone had a clear bubble canopy that automatically lifted away when you opened the doors, and those doors themselves slid open electrically rather than swinging out. Power came from a 390 cubic inch V8 mounted up front, paired with a rear transaxle. It was a rolling laboratory of futuristic ideas, silver and sleek and unlike anything on the road. The radar never worked perfectly, and the whole thing was far too exotic and expensive to ever build for customers. So the Cyclone became exactly what so many of these cars became: a glimpse of a future GM could imagine but would not sell, preserved in the company's collection as a monument to what might have been. Number 5. The 1964 Pontiac Banshee XP833. Some of these cars were never sold because they were too impractical. This one was killed for the opposite reason. It was too good. In 1964, a young Pontiac executive named John DeLorean, who would later become infamous for the DeLorean sports car, developed a lightweight, beautiful 2-seat sports car called the Banshee, codenamed XP833. It was aimed squarely at Ford's runaway hit, the Mustang. 2 running prototypes were built, one coupe and one convertible, with fiberglass bodies over steel structures. And the Banshee had a serious problem. It was so good that GM's leadership realized it would have the same power as the Chevrolet Corvette, while weighing around 500 pounds less, which meant it would have humiliated GM's own flagship sports car. The company could not allow one of its brands to beat another, so GM ordered DeLorean to stop. The Banshee was forbidden from reaching production, specifically to protect the Corvette. But the story has a twist. GM took the Banshee's gorgeous design, handed it to Chevrolet, and used it as a direct inspiration for the 3rd-generation Corvette that launched in 1968. The car that was killed to save the Corvette ended up becoming the Corvette. The 2 original prototypes survived, reportedly saved by the very men who built them. Number 4. The Chevrolet XP882 and Aerovette. For nearly 50 years, GM teased the world with a mid-engine Corvette, and it started with a car the company refused to sell in the early 1970s. The XP882 was a mid-engine Corvette prototype, with its engine mounted behind the driver like a Ferrari or Lamborghini, a radical departure from the traditional front-engine Corvette. It was not just a styling model. It had working hardware, a mid-mounted V8, and 4-wheel independent suspension, and it looked ready for a showroom floor. It later evolved into a version called the Aerovette, and at one point in the 1970s, it was actually approved as the next-generation Corvette, planned for a 1980 launch. Then GM got cold feet. Executives worried about the cost, worried it might steal sales from other models, and pointed to the collapse of GM's rotary engine program as a reason to play it safe. The mid-engine Corvette was shelved. And here is the staggering part. GM would not build a true mid-engine production Corvette until the C8 finally arrived in 2020, roughly half a century after the XP882 proved it was possible. The company had the future in its hands in 1970 and chose to wait 50 years. Number 3. The 2003 Cadillac 16. Every so often, GM builds a concept so extravagant it seems designed purely to prove the company can, and the Cadillac 16 is the ultimate example. Unveiled in 2003, the 16 was a massive, breathtaking luxury sedan built around an engine almost nobody else on Earth would attempt. As the name promised, it had a V16, a 13.6-liter monster with 16 cylinders, producing a claimed 1,000 horsepower and 1,000 pound-feet of torque, all without any turbocharger or supercharger. It even had clever cylinder deactivation technology that could shut down half or more of those cylinders when cruising to save fuel. The car was over 18 feet long, more hand-finished bodywork, and inside featured a genuine Bulgari clock and materials of staggering quality. The 16 was meant to recall the legendary Cadillac V16 luxury cars of the 1930s, and to prove that Cadillac could still build something to shame Rolls-Royce and Bentley. It thrilled everyone who saw it. But a 1,000-horsepower, 16-cylinder ultra-luxury sedan was never going to be a realistic product, and Cadillac never put it into production. It remains one of the most jaw-dropping cars the company ever built, and one you could never own. Number 2. The Pontiac Pegasus, a Ferrari in disguise. This one is perhaps the strangest entry of all, because it was a marriage between an American muscle car and an Italian thoroughbred. Around 1970, GM design chief Bill Mitchell created something almost unbelievable. He took a Pontiac Firebird and fitted it with a genuine V12 engine pulled from a Ferrari 365 GTB 4 Daytona, one of the most exotic and desirable sports cars in the world. And the result was called the Pontiac Pegasus. The front end was reshaped to resemble a classic Ferrari. The interior used Ferrari instruments, and under the hood sat the glorious Italian V12 in an American body. It was a one-of-a-kind fusion of Detroit and Maranello, built to satisfy Mitchell's personal vision rather than any business plan. Naturally, it was never sold. A Ferrari-powered Pontiac was never going to be a production reality, tangled in cost and licensing and sheer impracticality. But it stands as proof of how far GM's designers would go when given freedom, creating a machine that blended two completely different automotive worlds into a single impossible car that the public could only admire from beyond a rope. Number 1. The GM EV1. The number 1 spot does not go to the fastest or the most beautiful car GM never sold. It goes to the one with the most haunting story, because GM did not just refuse to sell it. GM took it back and destroyed it. In the 1990s, responding to new clean air regulations, GM built the EV1, the first purpose-built modern electric car with a major automaker. It was genuinely advanced, a sleek, aerodynamic two-seater that later versions could drive well over 100 miles on a charge, decades before electric cars became normal. And people who drove it loved it, many of them passionately. But GM never actually sold the EV1. The roughly 1,100 cars built were only ever offered on lease. Then, in the early 2000s, GM canceled the program. It reclaimed nearly every single EV1 from the people leasing them, over their protests, and sent the overwhelming majority to be crushed and shredded. Drivers who begged to buy their cars outright were refused. A small number survived, handed to museums and universities with their drivetrains deliberately disabled so they could never run again. The episode became so infamous, it inspired a documentary called Who Killed the Electric Car? GM had built the future, put it on the road, watched people fall in love with it, and then deliberately erased it. Of all the cars GM built, but never truly released to the public, the EV1 is the one whose destruction still stings. A reminder that sometimes the most remarkable machines are not just kept from us, but taken away entirely.